And I know you're shocked. You're looking at my knees in a way that's inappropriate. Covering my knees up now. My knees are blushing. Okay. So, we've got a nice quiet story to kind of ease us into the music in about an hour or so. And this is the story. The Bachla Solis story we're doing, this is the English version. It's a nice kind of story. But I have to ask you first, do you actually want to hear a story?
Yes!
Are you sure?
Yes!
Alright, I'll tell you a story. Let me drink of water first. Okay. This is a story, and I love this story because it's right from here, it's just there-ish. It's a nice Claddagh story. And ish. Ish. Yeah. Okay. And as folk from Galway know, and folk who are visiting maybe don't know, but they might know. There's certain times of the year when the water out in Galway Bay, it hisses and it boils and it spits. And that's when the mackerel are coming into the bay, okay, the mackerel. And the mackerel come in millions and millions, okay? A mackerel, a very tasty fish, the mackerel. And so the mackerel come in millions and millions, and when that happens, people shout out, the mackerel are running, the mackerel are running. And folk go around the whole of Galway Bay, you'll see them, there'll be folk with rods, there'll be folk with buckets, there'll be folk just diving in with their teeth and grabbing them out, okay? Folk everybody eats for free for a week or so when the mackerel come in. And this is really good kind of for the fishing community as well. Because it means the fishing community just goes into the bay, scoops up the mackerel, and they don't have to go into the Atlantic, which can be very, very dangerous, okay? So this story itself, it happened just over 100 years ago, maybe 120 years ago or so. And at that time, the Claddagh was the big fishing community. And there was about 90 boats in the Claddagh at this point. And so one day, one morning, the cry goes up, the mackerel are running, okay? And so all the men and the boys, they go down to get the boats ready. And the men and boys do the boats. The women do really hard work. They make the nets, they mend the nets, they take the fish to market. They fight a lot as well. There's lots of little reports of the women having riots and protests to kind of defend the Claddagh. Well known for that. But the men, they do the boats as well, which is dangerous work as well. So they go down to the boats, the men go down to the boats, the men and the boys. And of all the men and the boys there's three lads, three brothers. Their ages 14, 16 and 18 years of age, three lads. And they're particularly excited because that morning their father had said to them, lads, I'm too old to go fishing, so I give you my boat and I give you my blessing. So the boys, they've now got their own boat, they're like men. So they're kind of taking their time to just get the boat ready. They're checking the sails and they're checking all the nets and all the supplies. And as they're working away, they hear a commotion. And they look up and they see coming down the Claddagh, it's an old woman. And the old woman, and she's walking and she's got a white horse with her. And the old woman goes up to one of the boats and she says, men of the Claddagh, listen to me. And the lads go, oh, go away, there should be women at the boats, when they're about to sail. So she comes to the next boat. Men of the Claddagh, she says, men of the Claddagh, listen to me. And they chase her off. And she carries on doing this, get up to the boats, get chased off. And of course, all the boats, they get the sails up, they catch the breeze. They go all the way to Galway Bay until there's only one boat left. And that's the boat with the three lads, because they'll take particular time to get everything just right. Okay? So they're working away and they're getting things just right. And the old woman comes up to them and she says, men of the Claddagh, listen to me. And the lads, well, that morning got their own boat, and now there's a woman calling them men. So their chests swelled with pride, and they said, how can we help you? The old woman said, men of the Claddagh, listen to me. There's a storm brewing out in the Atlantic. And when it comes tumbling into Galway Bay, it's going to be as savage and as wicked as the devil himself. Do not go out fishing. And one of the lads said, well, we have to go fishing, we need the money. And the other lad says, well, you know what, there's no storm coming, feel that breeze, it's perfectly fill our sails. And the third lad said, look at the sun up there, it's all white and glowing like a new boiled egg. It's a perfect day for fishing. And the old woman said, okay lads, if you have to go fishing, do one thing for me. Take with you an axe and a hook and a long, sharp knife. So the lad said, okay. And he sent the youngest lad back to the house, and he got the axe and the hook and the long, sharp knife, and he stowed it in the boat, and he got the sails up, they caught the breeze, and went out into Galway Bay. And it was a wonderful morning. And soon all the boats were heaving with caught fish. And then all the boats were turning round to try and get back to the Claddagh. And suddenly, oh my goodness, the sky turned black and a storm erupted. And it was a huge storm, enormous waves, and there was thunder, and there was lightning, there was spray coming off the waves, spray coming off the rain, and the men were crying out in terror. They'd never seen such a storm in their life, crying out in terror, and they're trying to get the boats back round. The boys are trying to turn their boat round as well. They're trying to turn their boat round, trying to get back to Claddagh, but up came a wave. And the wave was 50 feet high. And the belly of the wave was black. And it was roaring towards the little boat. And just as it was about to swallow the boat, the oldest lad, the 18-year-old, he reached behind him and he grabbed a hold of the axe. And he shouted out, God keep us from harm. And he threw the axe at the wave. And the minute the axe touched the wave parted like the Red Sea before Moses. He came round either side of the boat. And the lads thought they were saved. But up came the second wave. And the second wave was 70 feet high, okay? And the belly of the wave was red as blood. And it was roaring towards the little boat, and just as about to swallow the boat, the second boy, the 16-year-old, thinking, he turned around and he grabbed a hold of the hook. And he shouted out, God keep us from harm, and he threw the hook at the wave. And the minute the hook touched the wave parted, but the Red Sea before Moses came round either side. And the lads thought, we're saved. But of course, up came the third wave. And the third wave was 150 feet high. No exaggeration, 150 feet. And his belly was silver with lightning. And the crest of the wave spat and churned with the smashed up remains of broken boats and broken men and boys. And just as he was about to swallow the boat, the third boy, the 14-year-old, without even thinking, he reached behind him. He grabbed a hold of the long, sharp knife. He shouted out, God keep us from harm, and he threw the knife at the wave. And the minute the knife touched the wave parted, the Red Sea before Moses, and came round either side of the boat. And better still, it left behind a little swell. And the swell pushed the boat all the way back to the Claddagh. So the boys go back to the Claddagh, they're tying up the boat. But who was there but the old woman with the white horse? And she put up her hands and went, now, lads, you cannot go home yet. There is one more thing you have to do. Get up on my horse. So the lads, they didn't go told, get up on the great white horse. So they got up on the horse there, and the woman, she began walking. And she began walking with the horse and the three lads, and she didn't walk into the Claddagh, she didn't walk into Salt Hill, and she didn't walk into Galway City. She walked onto the water. And for a moment, she waited on the water. She was paused standing on the water with the horse and the three lads. And then slowly she began to sink. And the water came up to her ankles, and the water came up to her knees, and up to her hips, and up to her neck. And then the water swallowed the old woman, and the horse, and the three lads. And beneath the waves there was no storm. It was all blurry and quiet, and fish were going by. And the woman was walking on the stones and on the seaweed. And the three lads were on the horse, mesmerised. They were beneath the water, but they could still breathe. And they were looking at octopuses going by, and selfie and all sorts of stuff. And wow! And the woman just kept walking further out with the horse, further out into Galway Bay and further down. Until eventually they were halfway across Galway Bay and 2 miles beneath the waves. And 2 miles beneath the waves was a beautiful city. A city beneath the waves. But its buildings were made of green Connemara marble. But there was nobody in there. And the lads, though, they could hear music in the distance. And the woman just kept walking and walking and walking. And eventually she came to a great field beyond the city. And in the great field the music was louder. And the lads looked up and they could see figures there, bloody figures of men and women playing music and dancing. But they couldn't quite make them out. And the woman with the horse kept walking with the 3 lads on the horse. And she walked and walked and walked. She walked faster now. She took them to the far side of the field. And in the far side of the field was a big mansion. When they got to the mansion, the old woman said to the lads, "Come off the horse now." So the lads got off the horse. And she said, "Now listen to me. You're to go into that mansion and bring back what is yours, but only what is yours. And when you're in there, you must not speak, not even one word." The lads went, "Okay." So they opened the mansion door and they stepped into the mansion. And inside the mansion was 3 doors. So the oldest lad, the 18-year-old, went to the first door and he opened the door up. And he stepped in. And inside the room was a big bed. Okay, a huge bed. And on the huge bed, there was a beautiful woman, as beautiful as a princess, lying there sleeping. And her hair was as black as the belly of the first wave. And sticking out of her head was the axe. Well, the lad was horrified, but he knew what he had to do. He reached over and he grabbed the handle of the axe. And he tugged. And he tugged. And it was really stuck in there. He could hear the sound of metal on bone. And he tugged and tugged. And finally, he took the axe from the beautiful woman's head. And the minute the axe was from her head, the wound healed over. The woman opened her eyes. She sat up and she said, Well, the boy blushed and he held on to the handle of the axe. And the woman held out her hand, and in her hand was the most beautiful necklace. She said, "A gift for you, for taking away my terrible wound." And the boy looked and, oh my goodness, that necklace was beautiful and it sparkled and he so wanted to touch the necklace. But he knew not to touch the necklace. He knew not to speak. He just held onto the handle of the axe as tight as he could, and he stepped back and he stepped back. He opened the door, he stepped through the door, he shut the door, and whoo! The spell was broken. Well, now it was the turn of the second lad, the 16-year-old. He opened the second door, stepped into the room, and in the room was a big, huge bed. And on the huge bed was a woman as beautiful as a princess, and her hair was as red as the belly of the second wave. And sticking out of her head was the hook. But the lad was horrified. But he knew what he had to do, and he reached over, grabbed the handle of the hook, and he tugged and he tugged. And it was really stuck in there. I could hear the sound of metal on bone. He took the hook from her head. And the minute the hook was from her head, the wound healed over. The woman opened her eyes. She sat up and she said, She said, "You must be terribly hungry and thirsty after your terrible journey." She clicked her fingers, and suddenly all manners of food and drink appeared. And oh my God, the boy was thirsty and the boy was hungry. His mouth was slavering and his belly was gurgling, and oh my goodness. But he knew not to touch the food, not to touch the drink, and not to speak one word. He just held onto the handle of the hook as tight as he could. He stepped back and he stepped back, and he got to the door, he opened the door, he stepped to the door and shut the door, and whoo! The spell was broken. Well, now is the turn of the third lad, 14 years of age. It was his turn now. He has to do it. He goes in, he opens the door, he steps through. There's a huge bed, and on the bed is a beautiful woman, as beautiful as a princess, and her hair is as silver as the belly of the third wave, and sticking out of her head is a long, sharp knife. But the lad is horrified, but he knew what he had to do, and he reached over and he grabbed the handle of the long sharp knife and he tugged and tugged, and it was really stuck in there, and he could hear the sound of metal on bone. And he took the long sharp knife from the beautiful woman's head. And the minute the knife was on her head, the wound healed over. The woman opened her eyes. She sat up in the bed and she said, the boy was standing there holding on to the knife. And suddenly he realised he was in a room with a beautiful woman on a bed. And it was not his mammy, or his granny, or the old man next door. It was a gorgeous woman sat on the bed, and she had great dark eyes. And she was staring at him with the great dark eyes. And the boy knew! He knew he had to leave the room from this part of his body up. He knew! He had to leave. With this part of his body down, walked him back to the beautiful woman, and he sat on the bed. And she looked at him with her big dark eyes. And the boy held on to the knife as tight as he could, and he kept staring at her, and she was so beautiful. And she looked at him, and then she spoke the most terrifying words the boy had ever heard. She said, "Tell me, have you ever kissed a girl?" She looked at him with her great dark eyes. "Have you," she said, "have you ever kissed a girl?" And with that, she puckered up her lips. And she began to lean towards the boy. The poor boy could not help himself. He was still holding on to the knife, but he could not help himself. His lips puckered up too. And he began leaning towards her. And she began leaning towards him. Closer and closer she got. With her lips getting more puckered, slavering they were. Closer and closer, the poor boy. Closer and closer. Closer and closer and closer until suddenly, bang! The door was kicked open. His two brothers ran in, grabbed a hold of him, dragged him out the room, slammed the door shut, and swoof! The spell was broken, and he was saved from a fate worse than death. So the three lads, they left the house. They're outside, the old woman with the horse, got on the horse, she said. They got on the horse, she said, "Well done, you got what's yours, only what's yours, the axe, the hook, and the long sharp knife. Now you can go home." So she took them back through the field, they heard the music. The lads looked around, they could see the figures more clearly. There was women, there was men, there were boys, they were all dancing and laughing. And the men and the boys were the men and the boys of the Claddagh who'd been out fishing that morning. But they did not get a chance to speak to them. The women just kept walking, walked through the city, took them all the way back to the Claddagh. When they got back to the Claddagh, the stars were sparkling, the storm was over, but the air was filled with the terrible keening wails of the women of the Claddagh mourning their drowned sons and husbands. And the old woman said, "Get off the horse and go home now." The lads got off the horse. Before they went, they looked at him and said, "Are we the only ones to survive?" And the old woman said, "You are. And the lad said, but why? And the woman said, no reason. And the lad said, there must be a reason. In the name of all that's holy, there must be a reason why we three alone survived. And the old woman looked at him and said, well, if you want a reason, perhaps it's this. You three and you three only survived because you three and you three only took the time to listen to an old woman from the clan.